This will take you to the screen where you can choose any activity. So there's a add no activity if you don't want to add and just create by yourself. This is a basic activity where you want this basic navigation, settings, and the plus sign where you can add this is an action item where you can say, for example, you want to add a note, so you can click it. So this is an action button which is shipped with Google Android IDE by default now. And this is an empty activity which doesn't have anything but just this navigation, and you start from scratch. This is full screen, Google, add mob, set activity, map activity, login, and so on. So feel free to experiment with that one if you like. So if you click next, you will have the activity name. So you have option to choose your own activity name, and you can click this button if you want it to generate layout file for you, which I would recommend, and which is by default named as activity_main. And this is a checkbox which is recently included in the Canary version, which says backward compatibility checked. So what it does is include the app compact libraries in your project. So if once you are done, you say finish, and it will create a new project for you. Compiling. So also this project is the Gradle based. So Android Studio IDE is Gradle based. So Gradle is a build system which is the counterpart for Ant. If you have used Ant before in past, so this is a counterpart for that, and it's a platform it's a build tool for future for Android Studio IDE and other projects for Google at the moment. Android related, of course. So once it's done, so also we would like to do one thing, since I can because I really can't show you my app on my phone running here, so I would like to set up an emulator here. So for setting up emulator, you may want to, oh, it's still loading. So you see there's a process running. So it's still building, scanning, and indexing at the moment. And just to give a little tour of this IDE, so if you click, this is Sdk Manager, so you can click on it and can download your Sdk tools and platform tools from here if you like to. And here you have the Sdk location, and also you can run in a standalone version as it's shipped by in Eclipse, and you can also run from command line. If you want to prefer that way, command line way, I'll show you later how to do that. So for now, this is, you can say okay. And also it gives you, once it indexes, finish indexing, it will give you option to create the emulator device. So all other buttons are right now froze now until it builds the project. So first time it takes a while because it's the first project that is being running, and you can hear these sounds like my laptop is about to fly. And so one process running, so it's indexing at the moment. So meanwhile, if you want to take a look at all the project structure, here it is. So this is a build.gradle file where you have dependencies on the which Gradle version you want to use, all repository, which is JSON now, and this is task clean, which will clean the build directory, drop the build directory to start the project building next time from the scratch. And this build script sits at the project level, while this is the another build.gradle, which says module::app is depending on your, or is meant for your project, that particular module. So you can have multiple modules within a one project if you like to, that we will have later, or if you want to include the libraries, that also you can do. So for as back to this particular file, so apply plugin with, so this back to app build.gradle file. So if you see the structure for this, apply plugin com.android application, which is a plugin for running the application. And for library, it looks like com.android.library. And compile SDK version, build tool version, it's all picked up by default depending on what SDK you have installed at the moment. This is the application ID. So why this is important is because depending on this ID, your app is discovered in the Play Store. So it has to be unique. And this is min SDK, target SDK version. So you should always have the target SDK version, the latest, so that it could be run anywhere or most of the latest device by Google. And this is version code and version name. So you need to update version code always whenever there is a new update to your app. Otherwise, Play Store will not recognize if it's a new update or not, and it has to be incremental. And right now in Canary version, automatically the trace instrumentation runner is automatically appended in the Android configuration file. And this is the build type, release, and so you can have multiple build type if you like. You can have default type and release type and product and so on. And dependencies is compile free. This one, and Android test compile. So these are the support libraries, app compact, which is included as when you check the support backward compatibility. And Google recently launched the Constraint layout, which is a very handy way of creating the layouts. So right now, as time of this recording, it's 1.00 alpha 2. And there's also the JUnit library is included by default. So let's take a tour of other major files in the basic Android application. So first is the manifest file. So the first one is the application. So you have manifest where you have the package name here. So it could be same or different than the application ID here, but it has to be unique in Play Store to have your application recognized by Play Store. But this thing, it should be same as here, like the package name where your classes are located. So earlier it used to be the same, but now they have give flexibility to make it different if you prefer that way. So these are the other default fields here, and this is the main activity, which is a launch activity. So for launcher, you have to say this is a launcher. So you have to have intent filter, which is action is the main, and the category should be at the launcher. So depending on which activity you want to make it as a launcher, you have to add this as a category there. So the next is the main activity, which is created by Android Studio IDE by default. So you see this is the main activity, which extends app compact activity to support backward compatibility, and it creates the one method on create, and which sets continue as activity main, which is the layout file for that. So this particular file, either you can navigate by clicking, holding the command and clicking on it. You can get in here, or other way is you can expand the rest and under layout and here and the activity main. So this is the same thing. So if you see here, there it's being the constraint layout is being used by default now, and you see the IDE is activity main for this particular layout, and these are the apps tools and the other default fields like width and height, which is match parent, and the context is your activity, which is calling this particular or using this particular layout file. And it has a one wrap text view, which has just says maybe hello world here, and the layout width and height are default, and everything is default. So if you see, these are the other constraints that constraint layout provide by default. So it says basically constraint bottom to the bottom of this and to the left of this. So basically these are the constraint that is being given by constraint layout by default. So other way is you don't have to even look at this XML file, and you see here the tabs, text and design. So if you go to design, you can have the view which you can see visually more and can do more things with it. And you see these are all the constraints here, and if you click on it, the hello world, so it's loading how this will look like. So layout width, you have options to change it if you like to. And the text, you can say hello world, or you can change it also. So you can say hello Android maybe. And content description, you can also add the content description if you like, and this is a text appearance. So these are like more properties that you want to alter. And the main thing is here is these constraints. So if you see, if you hover your mouse, you see how much is the margin should be, like 0. So right now for this application it's 0 everywhere, 0, 0, 0, but you can always change it. And so these are the basic thing. And if you see here activity main, and this is constant layout, and you see here, and you can always drag and drop new things if you like. And if you see, this is the 50%. So these are the real estate taken by you see the 50% here and 50% here by your this particular text view. And so that's it for now here. And if you go values, your strings are under values, so you can have your colors. These are the generated by default. You can add more resources, more colors under this resources tag, and styles. So this is by default. You can add more styles if you like to. It will be picked automatically. And here are the dimensions, so you don't have to hardwire your 16 GB or 32 GB in the code, and you can always use like add dim and this particular name, attribute name here. And yeah, so this is a quick tour about a rest folder, and right now we don't have any drawables. And map, so here are the launcher, which is by default, so it's here for all the screen resolution, HDPI, MDPI, XDPI, XX, and triple X HDPI. So this is how the basic REST folder looks like. And now if you want to take a quick look on test and Android test. So what's the difference in them, in between test and Android test? So Android test is an instrument test or integration test that runs on the device. So the test particularly runs on device, and you have to be hooked up either with simulator, emulator, or device to run these tests. And however, the other test is a simple unit test, which is it's just to test the logic of your code that you write, but it doesn't run on your device. So it runs in JVM, and this one runs on the main app. So for that, this is the app context. So you can see, you see instrumentation registry dot get target context that give you application